Think courtroom dramas are all serious business? Think again. From spiritual squirrels to bush-based privacy defenses, these are the one-on-one dumbest, weirdest, and most absurd things ever said in US courtrooms. Get ready to laugh, cringe, and maybe lose a little faith in humanity. 1. During a trial, an attorney genuinely asked the witness, "Was that the same nose you broke as a child?" As if people just casually trade noses like baseball cards. The courtroom went silent, waiting for the response. The witness, deadpan, replied, "Unless someone swapped it while I was asleep, yeah, pretty sure it's the same one." Someone in the back actually snorted. 2. A defendant was asked if he was at the crime scene. His answer? "I honestly don't remember, I was too drunk." Imagine the defense attorney shrinking into his chair while the judge scribbles something furious. Technically not an admission of guilt, but let's just say the prosecution didn't need a follow-up question after that one. The jury probably didn't either. 3. In a car accident case, a lawyer asked, "How far apart were the vehicles when they collided?" The witness blinked in disbelief, then said, "They were touching. That's what a crash is." You could almost hear the collective groan from the gallery. Somewhere, a law professor wept for the future of legal questioning. 4. In a child custody hearing, the mother was asked, "Do you have any children?" She responded confidently, "Yes, one." The next question came in hot. "And is that child yours?" The woman tilted her head like a confused cat. "I sure hope so." The judge didn't even bother hiding the eye roll. Sometimes the dumbest moments aren't from the witnesses. 5. During a personal injury trial, an attorney asked a witness, "What gear were you in at the moment of the impact?" Without missing a beat, the man said, "Gucci sweats and a hoodie." It was the most honest answer of the day. And while the lawyer meant the gear shift, everyone else appreciated the free fashion update. 6. A witness was asked if he could identify the attacker. He pointed confidently and said, "It was him. The man sitting at that table." When the defense objected, the judge looked over his glasses and said, "He just pointed at your client." It was one of those moments where the objection did more harm than help. 7. A lawyer asked a pathologist, "Doctor, how many autopsies have you performed on dead people?" The doctor blinked slowly and replied, "All of them. I try not to work on the living." There was a pause. Then laughter. Then more laughter. Somewhere in the back, even the stenographer had to stop typing. 8. One confused lawyer asked, "Were you alone or by yourself at the time?" The witness squinted and said, "Is this a trick question?" After a long pause, they added, "Yes, unless I'm secretly twins and don't know it." Half the courtroom was holding back laughter. The judge was not amused. 9. In a moment of legal poetry, a lawyer asked, "So, you were there until the time you left, correct?" The witness stared like they were being pranked, then replied, "Yep, that's how leaving works. You're somewhere, and then you're not." The court reporter later admitted she had to retype that sentence twice because she couldn't believe it was real. 10. In a theft case, a lawyer dramatically asked, "And what exactly did the suspect take from you?" The witness replied, "He took my purse and my peace of mind." The lawyer rolled his eyes and asked, "Anything else?" She paused and added, "Also my last stick of gum. So yeah, emotional and practical damage." Honestly, fair. 11. A defendant was asked if he had any prior arrests. He said, "Not that I can remember." The judge raised an eyebrow and asked, "Do you have an estimate?" The man nodded and said, "After the 12th time, I stopped counting." You know it's bad when even your criminal record has memory issues. 12. I saw him stab the victim, the witness said under oath. The defense attorney tried to chip away at the certainty. "Are you absolutely sure it was a knife and not something else?" The witness shot back, "Unless he was giving the guy a very aggressive massage, yeah, it was a knife." It wasn't even noon, and the courtroom had already peaked. 13. A coroner was asked by the defense, "Was the deceased dead at the time of the autopsy?" The doctor paused, then said, "That's usually how it works. We don't perform them on healthy volunteers." The lawyer turned red. Somewhere in the jury box, someone let out a wheeze they tried to disguise as a cough. 14. In a deposition, the lawyer asked, "Is your appearance here today pursuant to the notice I sent your attorney?" The witness responded, "No, I just hang out at courthouses for fun." The sarcasm was so thick you could spread it on toast. Even the judge cracked a smirk, and that says a lot. 15. Just before sentencing, the judge asked the defendant if he had anything to say. The man straightened up and said, "Yeah, can I get house arrest? In Hawaii?" The judge actually laughed before responding, "Only if you bring your own ankle monitor and build the jail yourself." Sadly, that wasn't a yes. 16. A lawyer once asked a witness, "What happened after you walked out of the house?" The witness replied, "I tripped over my cat, fell down the stairs, and swore for 5 minutes." The lawyer followed up with, "And was the cat yours?" The witness blinked. "No, it was visiting." The judge sighed audibly. Somewhere, a cat just claimed diplomatic immunity. 17. In a heated trial, the lawyer asked, "Were you under the influence of anything that night?" The man proudly said, "Just vibes." The courtroom didn't know whether to laugh or send him for a drug test. His lawyer buried his face in his hands like it was happening in slow motion. 18. A prosecutor once questioned a witness, "How many times have you lied under oath?" The man replied, "This week?" You could practically hear the brakes screeching in the judge's mind. Bonus points for honesty, minus several thousand for strategy. 19. A witness was asked if they saw the robbery happen. They said, "Yes, I was watching from across the street with binoculars." When asked why they had binoculars, they shrugged and said, "Bird watching." The lawyer said, "At midnight?" And the witness replied, "Owls are birds too, counselor." 20. A defense attorney tried to help his case by asking the officer, "And how did my client look when you arrested him?" The officer replied, "Like he regretted every life choice that brought him to that moment." Jury laughed. Judge didn't. The client looked like he regretted hiring that lawyer too. 21. During testimony, a lawyer asked, "Would you say your memory is good?" The witness said, "Yes." Then the lawyer asked, "And how do you remember the events of July 8, 1984? The witness said, "That's my birthday. My dad caught on fire at the barbecue." The courtroom collectively winced. Some stories just burn into your memory. 22. A man on trial was asked why he didn't stop when the police flagged him down. His answer? "I thought they were just fans of my driving." The officer confirmed they were not. His driving record did not suggest any fan base existed. 23. A woman being cross-examined was asked, "Do you always answer a question with a question?" She leaned forward and said, "Why do you ask?" The courtroom lost it. Even the judge chuckled and had to ask her to knock it off. 24. A lawyer asked, "Can you describe the man you saw running from the scene?" The witness said, "He looked like a raccoon in human clothes." The sketch artist gave up halfway through. The man was never found, but several raccoons were questioned and released. 25. During a civil suit, the plaintiff claimed emotional damage. When asked how it affected her life, she said, "I stopped trusting people and developed a fear of microwaves." No one dared to ask the connection, but the microwave company's lawyer looked deeply concerned. 26. An attorney asked a witness, "Did you see the stop sign?" The witness answered, "Yes, I saw it. I just didn't stop." The lawyer, stunned, asked, "Why not?" The witness said, "It's just a suggestion, right?" The officer in the room audibly coughed the word, "No." 27. A lawyer tried to prove the witness was lying by asking, "Isn't it true you once lied on a job application?" The witness said, "Yeah, I said I liked working with people." The courtroom cracked up. The HR department somewhere nodded in solidarity. 28. A judge once asked a defendant if he had anything to say in his defense. The man stood and said, "I would like to plead temporary stupidity." The judge replied, "That may be the most honest thing you've said today." He still got sentenced, but at least with style. 29. During cross-examination, a lawyer asked a teenager, "Would you say you're a responsible young man?" The teen nodded and said, "Absolutely, I even wash my own socks." The jury laughed. The judge just muttered, "We're doomed." 30. A defendant was asked, "Do you understand the charges against you?" He said, "Kinda. I read half of them on Reddit." The judge paused and asked, "And where did you read the other half?" The man said, "The comment section." Verdict: legally unprepared. 31. A defense attorney asked, "And what did you do after you realized you'd hit the parked car?" The defendant replied, "I left a note. Well, I thought about leaving a note. Then I realized I didn't have a pen." He was then asked, "So what did you do instead?" He shrugged and said, "I prayed." Bold legal move. Not sure heaven files accident reports. 32. In a property dispute, the lawyer asked, "Did you take anything from the house when you left?" The witness said, "Only my dignity." The judge looked up and said, "Let's stick to physical items, please." The man replied, "Then no, I left that too." And just like that, the courtroom turned into open mic night. 33. A lawyer asked, "So, you're telling me you didn't hear the burglar?" The homeowner responded, "No, I sleep with a fan on." The lawyer, confused, said, "How loud was the fan?" The man proudly replied, "It's a box fan on turbo. It could drown out a marching band." Somewhere, a burglar took notes. 34. In traffic court, a man defended his speeding by saying, "I wasn't speeding, I was time traveling." When pressed, he added, "I just didn't reach the wormhole yet." The judge gave him points for creativity, but not for physics. The fine stayed. The reputation, however, went cosmic. 35. A lawyer once asked, "Did you know you were trespassing?" The man said, "No, I was hiking." When asked what trail he was on, he said, "The one Google Maps made up." Half the jury nodded in sympathy. Honestly, who hasn't been betrayed by GPS? 36. The court asked a woman why she brought her emotional support llama to jury duty. Her reply? "He calms me, and he hates liars." She added that the llama spit on people who were dishonest. The bailiff quickly escorted the pair out, but not before the llama spat once. Coincidence? 37. A man on the stand was asked, "How do you know the defendant?" He paused, then said, "We went to high school together. He copied my math homework. So yeah, he's guilty of at least something." The lawyer clarified the charge had nothing to do with algebra, but the shade had already been thrown. 38. A witness said, "I didn't want to call the police, I thought I could handle it myself." When asked how he planned to handle an armed intruder, he replied, with intense eye contact and a firm tone. Somehow, the jury managed not to laugh. Barely. 39. A lawyer asked, "Did you witness the altercation?" The woman said, "Yes, but I was trying to mind my business." The judge asked, "So why did you record it?" She responded, "Because I knew this would end up on TikTok, Your Honor." Evidence submitted, exhibit viral. 40. When asked if he regretted running from the cops, the man replied, "Yes, but only because I tripped." The officer confirmed the fall happened 2 feet into the chase. So much for the great escape. The man added, "I thought I was faster. Turns out, I'm just confident." 41. In a fraud case, the defendant was asked if he forged the signature. He said, "It depends how you define forge." The judge said, "Illegally signed someone else's name." He blinked and replied, "Then, yeah." His lawyer nearly disintegrated on the spot. 42. A teen was testifying about a stolen bike. The lawyer asked, "Did you do anything to stop the thief?" The teen said, "I chased him until I realized I was on foot." The judge asked if that strategy worked. "No, sir. He had the bike." 43. During cross-examination, a man was asked, "Did you yell at the officer?" He said, "No. I elevated my voice with passion." The courtroom chuckled. The judge said, "We call that yelling. Sit down." The man sat passionately. 44. A woman being questioned was asked why she didn't come forward earlier. She responded, "I was waiting for the perfect moment to make a grand entrance." The judge arched an eyebrow and said, "This isn't a movie. Just stick to the facts." 45. A witness was asked to describe the man he saw leaving the scene. He was tall, wore a hoodie, and moved like a ninja. The lawyer asked, "What does that mean?" The witness replied, "Like, he didn't make noise. He glided. I was impressed, honestly." The judge reminded him it was a courtroom, not a fan club. 46. A man on trial was asked, "Why did you run from the scene?" He shrugged and said, "Because I didn't want to be there when the cops arrived." The prosecutor asked, "Why not?" He replied, "Because I knew they'd ask questions like this." At least he's consistently unhelpful. 47. During testimony, a woman was asked, "What made you suspicious of your neighbor?" She replied, "He mows his lawn at night, barefoot, and sings opera to his tomatoes." While not illegal, it definitely made the top 10 weirdest motives list for calling the police. 48. In a courtroom packed with spectators, a man was asked, "Do you understand what perjury is?" He proudly said, "Yeah, it's like advanced lying, right?" The judge sighed and replied, "No, it's the fast track to jail." The man simply nodded, like he'd learned something new. 49. A lawyer asked, "Did you threaten the witness?" The defendant said, "Not threaten. I just told him karma's got a calendar." The lawyer stared. "And what does that mean?" The defendant smiled. "It means he'll get his." The court stenographer later confirmed it was said in a totally ominous tone. 50. A defendant was asked why he brought a squirrel into the courtroom. His explanation? "He's my business partner. We met during meditation." The judge declared the squirrel a non-essential witness, but allowed it to stay, as long as it didn't object. 51. In a car accident case, the plaintiff said, "The car came out of nowhere." The defense asked, "Was it invisible?" The plaintiff said, "It felt invisible." The judge responded, "We're not dealing in feelings, sir." The plaintiff said, "Then I got nothing." 52. A man was asked, "Do you consider yourself a law-abiding citizen?" He said, "I try, but some laws are just too optional." The courtroom collectively blinked. The judge leaned forward and asked, "Did you just say optional?" The man replied, "Only the boring ones." 53. During a theft case, the suspect said, "I didn't steal it. I borrowed it permanently." The prosecution asked, "Do you understand the difference between borrowing and stealing?" He replied, "Sure. One has a return date. I just didn't set mine." 54. A witness was asked, "How did you know the fight started?" She said, "He took off his earrings and handed someone his drink. That's a universal signal." The lawyer asked, "Is that factual?" She replied, "It is in my neighborhood." The jury nodded. Even the bailiff agreed. 55. A defendant told the judge, "I'd like to represent myself." The judge said, "Are you sure?" The man replied, "Absolutely. No one knows how innocent I am better than me." Spoiler, he was not innocent, and he lost spectacularly. 56. A woman suing her neighbor was asked why. "He stole my garden gnome," she said. "But it's not just a gnome. His name is Frederick, and he's family." The courtroom laughed until she pulled out a photo album. The judge whispered, "I've seen it all now." 57. A man testifying was asked if he believed in the justice system. "Not really," he said, "but I believe in plot twists." The judge looked up like he was waiting for one. None came. Just a sentence and a very confused jury. 58. A lawyer asked, "Why did you go back into the house?" The defendant said, "Because I left my chicken nuggets in the microwave." The judge asked, "So you broke into your own crime scene? For nuggets?" He replied, "They were spicy." It was the saddest alibi of the year. 59. A teenage witness was asked if he understood the seriousness of court. He replied, "Of course, I dressed up for it." He was wearing a suit jacket over a hoodie that said "probation vibes." The judge stared at him for 5 full seconds before moving on. 60. During a noise complaint hearing, the accused said, "Yes, I played the saxophone at 2 a.m., but it was jazz. That's soothing." The officer who responded to the call was asked for his opinion. "It was not soothing," he said. "It sounded like a dying goose." Verdict: guilty, but make it jazzy. 61. A man being questioned about trespassing said, "I wasn't trespassing. I was exploring." The lawyer asked, "Exploring what exactly?" He replied, "The limits of your definition of private property." The judge raised an eyebrow and muttered, "Well, you found the limit." The man smiled like he'd won something. He hadn't. 62. In a noise violation hearing, the defendant said, "My music wasn't too loud. The neighbors are just too sensitive." When asked what song was playing, he proudly replied, "My dubstep remix of the national anthem." The judge asked for clarification. "It starts with fireworks and ends with an eagle scream," he said. America would like a word. 63. A man was asked why he appeared shirtless on a neighbor's Ring camera at 3 a.m. He answered, "I was doing a vibe check." When pressed for details, he said, "Sometimes the night calls you outside. You just answer." The judge said, "Next time, put on a shirt before answering." 64. A woman trying to sue her ex said, "He stole my aura." The court asked for clarification. "You mean your belongings?" "No," she said. "My spiritual essence. I was a 10. Now I'm a 6. The judge paused, then said, "We don't handle soul theft. Yet." 65. A man claimed police targeted him unfairly. The officer was asked why he stopped the defendant. He was wearing a ski mask in July. The man replied, "It's part of my skincare routine." SPF 1000? Maybe? Suspicious? Absolutely. 66. When asked why she keyed her neighbor's car, the woman said, "He parked too close to my vibe space." The court asked if that was a physical measurement. She replied, "Roughly 4 feet of energetic radius." Judge's response? "We only recognize parking zones, not chakras." 67. A man tried to sue a restaurant for psychological distress. His reason? "They gave me Pepsi when I asked for Coke." The server confirmed they informed him of the switch. "But I nodded politely," he said. "That doesn't mean consent." A lawsuit born of carbonation betrayal. 68. A witness was asked what she heard the night of the crime. She said, "I heard someone yell, 'YOLO,' followed by a crash." The prosecution asked, "And you're sure it was that word?" She nodded, then added, "It was said with such commitment, I knew something stupid was coming." 69. A man on the stand insisted he wasn't resisting arrest. "I was just doing interpretive dance," he said. The officer confirmed he was flailing. "Art is subjective," the man added. The courtroom debated whether jazz hands count as aggression. Verdict: yes, in this context. 70. A defendant accused of misappropriating office supplies argued, "I wasn't stealing. I was conducting an impromptu productivity audit." When pressed on the specifics, he listed 3 staplers, a desk lamp, and half a printer were necessary to evaluate office workflow. The judge retorted, "Unless you're drafting a business proposal, your audit is over." 71. A man defending his online threats said, "It wasn't serious. I used emojis." The judge asked, "What kind of emojis?" He replied, "Knife, fire, laughing skull." The judge nodded slowly. "We're adding a few more charges." Moral of the story? Emojis can and will be used against you. 72. In a fraud trial, the defendant was asked why he made up a fake business. Because Shark Tank said, "Believe in yourself." He claimed it was motivational, not criminal. Unfortunately, his fake business was invisible umbrellas. The court believed in the charges instead. 73. A witness said, "I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I have excellent ears." The lawyer asked, "So you admit to listening in?" She said, "I consider it accidental surveillance." The judge asked if she was a spy. "Only at dinner parties," she replied. 74. A defendant in a street racing case said, "I wasn't racing, I was spiritually accelerating." When asked to clarify, he said, "My soul moves faster than traffic laws." The officer added, "His soul was doing 102 in a 45. The jury didn't need a recess after that one. They were already done. 75. A woman being sued for defamation said, "I didn't lie. I just posted a dramatic version of events." When asked if it was factual, she said, It was emotionally accurate. The judge leaned in and said, "Court only recognizes facts, not fan fiction." 76. A man being cross-examined was asked, "Do you believe in telling the truth?" He said, "I believe in telling my truth." The judge interrupted, "We only allow the truth here." The man shrugged. "Well, this might be a short trial then." It was, for all the wrong reasons. 77. A lawyer asked the defendant if he understood the charges. He replied, "I read them on Wikipedia, twice." The judge asked if he consulted a real attorney. "No need," he said. "I'm a Sagittarius. We improvise." The only thing he manifested that day was a conviction. 78. A man on trial for vandalism said, "I didn't destroy property, I upgraded it with street art." The judge asked what he painted. A flaming skull with angel wings and a quote that says, "Justice is a vibe." The property owner disagreed. So did the law. 79. In a trial involving a bar fight, a witness said, "I didn't see who started it, but I saw who finished it," with a karaoke mic and a power stance. The courtroom paused. The defendant nodded proudly. The judge just said, "Let's stick to the actual punches, not the musical ones." 80. A defendant tried to excuse his speeding by saying, "I had just eaten tacos and needed a bathroom fast." The officer confirmed he was doing 85 in a school zone. "Taco emergency," the man insisted. The judge said, "That's not in the traffic code. Yet." 81. A woman was asked, "Did you throw the shoe at the defendant?" She replied, "Technically yes, but spiritually, I was tossing out bad energy." The jury looked confused. The defendant showed a bruise. The judge reminded everyone, court is not a place for spiritual exorcism by footwear. 82. A teenager was asked why he skipped court. "I had to finish my video game tournament," he said. "I was in the finals." The judge asked what game. "Call of Duty." The judge nodded solemnly and said, "You just unlocked a new level called juvenile detention." 83. In a minor theft case, the defendant said, "I didn't steal the candy bar, I was just holding it real hard." The judge asked, "Outside the store?" He nodded. "Yeah, just needed some air with the bar." The candy was evidence. So was the logic, barely. 84. A man testifying about a noise complaint said, "It wasn't a party, it was an energy reset." The officer described flashing lights, loud music, and 30 guests. "We were aligning our frequencies," the man insisted. "To the beat of EDM?" the judge asked. "Exactly." 85. A woman suing her neighbor for damages claimed her dog barked with aggressive tone. The court asked what that meant. She said, "It wasn't just loud, it was judgmental." No one could tell if she was serious. The dog was brought in. It barked once. The jury cracked. 86. A man on trial for public urination said, "It wasn't public, I was behind a bush." The officer said it was a very small bush. "Then I plead bush-based privacy." The judge said, "That's not a thing." The man said, "It should be." He lost badly. 87. When asked about a confrontation in a coffee shop, a witness said, "They argued over oat milk versus almond milk. It escalated fast." The lawyer asked, "Did it get violent?" "Only emotionally," the witness said. "They threw latte art insults." First-degree hipster drama. 88. A defendant accused of shoplifting said, "I was testing the product's portability." The item? A full-sized vacuum cleaner. The judge asked how far he got. 3 blocks, he said. "I'd say it's highly portable." Not enough for a defense, but solid customer feedback. 89. A woman being questioned about a parking dispute said, "Yes, I parked in his spot, but I did it with grace." When asked to elaborate, she said, "I reversed smoothly, no tire squeals, 10-10 precision." The judge replied, "Still illegal, but I'm impressed." 90. A man on trial for impersonating a police officer was asked why he did it. He said, "I just wanted people to listen to me for once." The lawyer asked, "And how'd that go?" The man sighed and said, "Too well, now I'm here." Justice. Served with irony. 91. A man defending himself in court opened with, Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I am not a lawyer, but I have watched every season of Law & Order. The judge interrupted, "That's not a qualification." The man replied, "It's more than some lawyers have." He was wrong and sentenced. 92. A woman being sued for damaging a car claimed, "I hit it, yes, but with the energy of someone who was provoked." The judge raised an eyebrow and asked, "What provoked you?" She answered, "Its bumper sticker said, 'Cats are overrated.'" The courtroom went silent. Somewhere, a cat hissed. 93. A witness said under oath, "I only tell the truth on Tuesdays." It was Thursday. The lawyer just stared. The judge scribbled something, probably a request to check the calendar next time someone swears in a witness. 94. In traffic court, a man was asked if he understood the sign that said, "No U-turn." He said, "Yes, but I thought it was more of a suggestion than a command." The judge responded, "That's exactly how we end up with cases like this." 95. A defendant said, "I didn't resist arrest. I just strongly disagreed with the method." The officer testified he had to chase the man across 3 lawns. The man added, "That's just cardio, not resistance." The jury wasn't buying it, but hey, at least he burned calories. 96. A woman accused of fraud said, "It wasn't fraud, it was entrepreneurial spirit." She had sold invisible crystals for $99 each. When asked if she really believed they had power, she said, "They empowered my bank account." Even the prosecutor cracked a smile. 97. During a hearing, a man stood up and yelled, "I object." The judge asked, "You're not a lawyer. What are you objecting to?" He replied, "The vibe in this room." The judge ordered him removed. The bailiff said it was the most confusing objection he'd ever heard, and he'd seen a guy object to gravity once. 98. A witness was asked, "Are you certain of what you saw?" She replied, "As certain as I am that pineapple does not belong on pizza." The lawyer asked, "So, very certain?" She said, "Absolutely. I'd stake my life on it." Pizza takes, now admissible in court. 99. A defendant tried to delay sentencing by declaring, "I'm not ready. I need time to consult my horoscope." The judge retorted, "Your stars can wait, justice cannot," and promptly delivered the sentence. 100. A man accused of crashing a wedding said, "It wasn't crashing, it was surprise attendance." When asked if he was invited, he replied, "Not officially, but spiritually, yes." He ate 3 plates, caught the bouquet, and ended up in small claims court. Wedding vibes, not legally binding. 101. And finally, a man defending his bizarre behavior in court said, "Your Honor, I plead temporary main character syndrome." The judge asked, "Is that a real thing?" The man said, "It is when you believe the world revolves around you." The judge replied, "Unfortunately for you, this courtroom does not." If you made it this far without objecting to reality, congrats. You survived the strangest legal circus in America. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments. Which courtroom quote should be illegal in every state? And if you're part of the elite squad that stuck around till the end, type "No judge, no fudge" in the comments, so we know you ride with the realest legal legends.